In my mother's name, in my father's name, in the name of all my perished people, I will conquer this vault.
Vault Hunter, or Victor. Now, add his strength to your own. A portion of his
this guy was easier than the first guy I fought. The first Primordial Garden. I died. Well, I mean, I beat him the first time. So every boss I've encountered, I think, every boss I fought in this game so far, I've been able to get through them on the first attempt. Although some, especially in the beginning, I'd go down, that I was able to, fight for my life and get back up before I died. Couple of close calls. I could have easily lost. Had to redo a couple bosses, but for the most part, it's all been first attempts, and I'm on hard difficulty now too. I started on normal because this is my first Borderlands. I had no idea what to expect, but yeah, I don't even see hard. There's like no difference between normal, hard, or easy. Like I even tried easy to see how it is. Like there's feels like there's hardly any difference between the difficulties, which honestly I'm not opposed to anyway, because especially in the first half of the campaign, I just kept going, like I would be fine in most fights and then I would just die instantly from full health. Like I would just be at full armor, full health, and then drop instantly because of some random BS amounts of damage I would take suddenly, like getting a grenade like multiple grenades at once or some nonsense like that I just could not survive, period. I have noticed that has not happened hardly at all yet. In fact, it's been a long time since I've gone down once now, and on a harder difficulty, so I think that's good news. Like, I'm building this guy right, I think. Now, I can tell this melee tank aiming is not good for these bosses. I have a feeling like Rafa or some other, like, maybe a pure gun DPS or pure skill DPS or something would, like, laugh at how I'm struggling right now with the bosses. I don't really care, though, because I like to play a tank. That's just how I'm always going to be. And I've already seen some YouTube videos of these completely broken guns. The thing is, they're not even build-based. You can literally just there's like some sort of like alts you can get on certain guns with just like one piece of gear, and that's all you need to combine with it to make you one-shot every boss in the game. There's stuff like that right now out there I can see. And I'm like, I'm not even going to do that. That's too ridiculous to me. It's too, like, I would be bored out of my mind for these bosses if I was just one-tapping them immediately. Because it's just, like, I actually want to have a fight. I know it's hard to believe, but I want a challenge, even though I complain about difficulty all the time in games. It's maybe what made me quit Division. But again, that's because I don't want Rage difficulty or Dark Souls difficulty or enemies crapping on you constantly difficulty. I just want, like, I want to be able to get through it. I want to still have a power fantasy where I feel like I'm OP, my character's OP. But the fight at least is like long enough. Really, it's just about it being long. That's probably why I prefer being a tank, so that I can deliberately extend fights, so I can enjoy the fights too. I can enjoy just being in the fight, is what I want to see. And also, it's like, yeah, I have a little hint of a challenge. That's all I want, is a hint of a challenge. Now, I've noticed in any random encounter in the world, there's no challenge at all anymore, which is a little disappointing. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to them increasing the difficulty a smidgen. But again, I'm cautious to say that because knowing devs and everything, they take that and they run a mile, and then I just rage quit the next day after they just buff the enemies or bosses so ridiculous amounts, or add a bunch of instant wipe mechanics on the bosses, which I would definitely hate. So I really hope that doesn't happen. But this game is great power fantasy. Right now I'm showing what my loadout is currently. What I intend to do, I already know one thing in game I want to try and do, and I know I can do it now from some of the gear I've seen, is later on, like getting more shield, more damage mitigation, more healing off the melee. All of that is great and helped my tankiness on this guy. But the best thing for tanking on Eamon, I've noticed, is just his melee skill itself. Like the Forge, whatever it's called, the Forge, the Onslaughter skill, that is absolutely key to being a super tank on him. Like when I'm in that skill, there's been a couple instances in the game where I was taking so much damage that even that wasn't enough to keep me alive, and I'd have to retreat, or I just died at the very beginning. Again, I haven't noticed that as much, but for the most part, every fight I've been, including every boss fight I've been, even if they're doing their super boss moves, like just being in that skill is just invincibility mode, pretty much. But it's got a freaking 50-second cooldown, which is so annoying. But what I've noticed is you can stack certain action skill reduction ones. That's why I'm still using that level 16 rep kits, because it has the action skill reduction, the action cooldown rate, so I just only pop it when my skill is done, which is fine because it's like my shield hardly ever breaks. Rep kits don't really have any use except utility to me. Like, I heal far more from the skill, from getting the invulnerability, from my other skill, from getting, and now I have multiple, like I get, if my shield breaks, I get lifesteal and the shield back too, like a bunch of different things that just keep me next to invincible if I just cycle them, basically is what I do. It's why you see I don't use my super skill much, because one, it doesn't do that much damage, and two, I mostly just use it to get the invulnerability 6 seconds on it. You know, once I get to the bottom of the skill tree, I want to change it to that other, the capstone, to change it to the one with a lower cooldown. I just want a lower cooldown so that I can activate the invulnerability on it quicker. That's the only reason. Because basically it's like I use my main skill, right? And then when it's done, I immediately use my rep kit to get the cooldown down some. And then I always try to make sure I cycle in time that my invulnerability skill is ready to use when I'm waiting to use my onslaughter, in case I start taking, you know, too much damage to survive until my onslaughter is ready to use again. But I'm still in this phase where it's like I just use my skills strategically more so rather than spamming them. But I know I can see a point where once I get, like I have another rep kit now that has action cooldown rate and it has 2 charges on it. However, I tested it and it doesn't really help me much more currently. But now that I've seen how the math works and how the cooldown it reacts to this stuff, I can tell that once I get base cooldown rate on like my gear, like I get the firmware that gives me more action cooldown rate, and then I've seen there's definitely there's some pieces of gear that give you, like legendary at level 50, I know, that give you like up to 50% action skill cooldown, and I know if I can combine those two and then use literally my low level rep kit with 2 charges on it, if I combine all of that and then immediately pop both my charges on my rep kit the moment onslaughter is done, I will reduce the cooldown to just a few seconds finally, where I actually will get it back in a few seconds. And my rep kit has a low enough cooldown, that's something else I keep in mind, is I also want my rep kit that I use for this to have a low enough cooldown that it's ready to use immediately if the duration of onslaught goes all the way. Especially if I'm in a boss fight and I get no kills, that increases duration. I like to know that my rep kits have a low enough cooldown that those 2 charges, which I do for this one I have, I'm not using it yet, but I will if I ever get this synergy going, where like I can tell I can eventually get like 80% action skill cooldown on my gear alone, if not more from stuff I don't know yet. But I know I can get 80% though. I've seen the gear. So you can get 80%. Then I pop my 2 rep kits that both give 100% and stack. And then they also only have like a 10-second cooldown on the rep kits. So I pop both of them right after onslaughter is done, and then it reduces the cooldown on onslaughter with all of that to like 8 seconds, which is just enough time to get it back again before my buffs wear off. So then that way it doesn't go away, and then I can always get the skill back. And then my rep kit's cooldowns are also low enough that even if I get no kills too, the like 20-ish seconds of the skill duration is enough for both of them to be ready again to pop immediately when I lose the skill again. So that's kind of that synergy. I already see some super tank synergy I'm going to go for later on. Because damage reduction also, I've noticed, is a lie. Like you see I have like 50%, it ain't 50%. I've tested the tank one that says it gives you, on a rep kit that says it gives you 50%, and I like start damaging myself, and it's like literally like 10 or 15% less damage. Which, I mean, it's still nice to have. That's why I still have that in my skill tree, because I didn't see anything better anyway to use. So that's still, damage reduction, damage mitigation is still useful in this game, but it actually isn't. If you're trying to build a tank, I've noticed, it really isn't as OP as you think it is to stack a bunch of that, because it's definitely not multiplying. It's definitely not saying, Like, when you see 50% damage reduction, it does not mean you're going to take half damage from everything in the game. I still don't even know if it actually works on everything, but I know at least for my own damage I do to myself just to do testing when I try and do this, it's definitely not 50% less damage. It's like, again, like 15-ish% damage. So just something to keep in mind. Stacking more armor is definitely way more important because armor has a set amount of regen rate. So just like other games, the more armor you have, the more armor you're going to regenerate. So that's definitely key. I'm definitely always going to try and use maximum armor as I can. The Jacobs brand armor also regenerates faster than the other brands I've seen. It regenerates like 20% faster. So another thing to keep in mind. So yeah, that's important. So basically what I've noticed is stacking a bunch more armor and then just getting a lot more healing is what is the key to being a super tank, which is why, at least right now in this game, from what I can tell, which is why the melee skill, my onslaughter skill, is just complete invincibility. Like, I pop it, I get all of my armor and health back immediately, and then it gives me a 10% constant armor regen over my other armor regen happening. Like, my armor still keeps regenerating with it active, so it's just an insane amount of healing. And then, of course, it stacks with my overshield off melee. And then it increases my melee damage, so my melee is healing me. It's giving me even more overshield every time I hit anything with Onslaughter. So, yeah, I can tell stacking health and melee damage for the melee regen is what you really want to do for your base tankiness on Aemon for this kind of build. But, however, getting Onslaughter to the point where you can use it a lot more often is really the key to being a super tank, I've noticed. So that's going to be my priority. Not if I have to give up damage mitigation to make sure I get my Onslaughter back quicker, I can tell that's a better trade-off to being a super tank.